My content is for 13 and up or adult collectors of the product. Hasbro's done a lot of bad releases, but what about the times they did a pretty good job? Hello everyone, and before we continue with this video, subscribe to the channel with bell notifications on if you're new here. Now in this video, we are doing the top 5 Hasbro part releases that are better than their original TAKARA Tomy counterpart. Now this one was a little bit fun to do, mostly because of the fact that it's very easy for modern Hasbro stuff just to get picked on because it's absolutely garbage, but there are times when they do releases that, you know, pretty good. Starting us off, we have Hunter Slingshock. So this was released in Beyblade Burst Turbo. It is a extreme improvement over the original Hunter. Let's start. There's actual power when you use it. It's very effective for that. Let's see what else. It's a lot less passive than the actual Hunter is. I feel like Hunter's just a little too passive for when you use it. It's got the aggression, it's got the power, and overall has a lot more consistent use and is very reliable. Like, it has a good spring to it too. And I prefer it way over the original Hunter. Granted, it's kind of like if you combined Hunter and Extreme and you fuse them together, and I guess that's kind of Hunter Slingshock. Is there anything else to really mention? I guess another thing just to mention with it is you do need just to make sure you have a little bit of control when you do the shoot to get it right, but aside from that, I think it pretty much works, and I have to say that because for attack tips, you have to make sure you get the good control, because otherwise, if you screw up, you just lose all your steam and that's it. But I do think it is a great improvement over it. It was kind of a little hard released because they didn't make it. Some of these parts are a little bit hard to get because they didn't do re-releases, or the re-releases were kind of locked in sets and stuff. But yeah, this is one of the good ones. Following off, we have another Slingshock performance tip, no surprise there, Yard Slingshock. So a big weakness to the original Yard is its design. It is too scrapey, even if you can argue at the time of release that, oh, you know, it was kind of usable. You know, that little ring part just gets in the way of it. But what's really nice about Yard Slingshock is not only do you have the good stamina and everything, but because that part is actually raised upwards, you actually are a lot more stable. You destabilize less because the thing is raised up, so it removes the scraping issue. Stable, stamina, it basically is like everything Yard could have been. And I consider that to be a big improvement. Also, just to mention, if I mention anything from Slingshock, because I just realized this, I'm not talking about Slingshock mode, just the Battle Ring mode, or whatever it's called, the main mode. But I think that's pretty, like, straightforward and fair. Next up is Absorb Slingshock, another Slingshock driver. What a surprise, I didn't have many options. For this, okay, so a big weakness to Absorb is, like, opposite spin, it's one thing because for equalization, okay, fine, it works. Same spin, it's an issue because if you hard launch, what that basically happens is you can very easily self-KO, and that is very detrimental in battle. While it's maybe cool, casual, and fun for like, oh, absorb break or whatever, I think the fact that it doesn't really do the gimmick was actually a big W. So, fair enough. You get the good stamina overall, and you get more control. And I think I'm pretty fair there. Most of these are just like, just as this better overall, and I don't think anything too crazy just to mention. But I am very happy with Absorb Slingshock. Moving on from there, we have a different one. It's not Slingshock, Evolution Speedstorm. While it's a little bit weird on the awakening process, the reason why I think this, and I would maybe even argue one of the best attack drivers, is because they did one thing that TAKARA Tomy just kind of doesn't like to do, which is soft rubber. So the reason why soft rubber is better than hard rubber, generally, and usually there should be like a balance between the two, is soft rubber grips to the stadium more. So if you notice with hard rubber, you're more likely to self-KO and skip like the ridge and everything, but with softer rubber, you're more gripping to the stadium, you're more consistent overall. Now obviously you don't want too soft because then the rubber wears too quickly, and you don't want too hard, so you know, kind of like an in-between. I think it's good in that regard. It is a little bit too tall, but I think for the concept of Evolution versus Evolution Speedstorm, if Takara Tomy did like some version where it's like Evolution Speedstorm, everyone would use it over the original Evolution. So in that regard, I would think it is pretty good. There is some kind of weird thing with the Speedstorm one where you will get it worn, but sometimes it kind of goes past. I think it's just how I awakened mine, but it kind of feels like a weird version of basically Bite, with kind of how passive it gets them. But sometimes it's like this weird thing, right? But honestly, that was one of the good ones. One of the really good ones. Now for our last one, it's Quad Drive. Now I know what you're thinking, Quad Drive. Now it is a lot, it's a lot better than the original kick, and considering how much of a heap of garbage Quad Drive is, like a stinking pile of garbage, kick attachment is, I would argue, probably the best attachment to come out of Quad Drive, and even just Hasbro in general. It's got very good stamina. That's actually, okay, so let's talk about the weakness with the actual kick. The gimmick doesn't work. I don't know what the hell the gimmick is. Every time that someone tells me the gimmick, I say, wait, is it? Kick's gimmick has always been kind of a thing where you read it one time and you forget about it, because it's just that forgettable. It's honestly, I think, the worst Fafnir tip. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know, man. I don't know. The gimmick gets in the way. Maybe not the worst Fafnir tip, but definitely one of the worst stamina tips they've done recently. Okay, so it's supposed to be a thing that when it gets knocked, it's supposed to like regain its balance or whatever, I guess. So I think what they were trying to do is if you get hit, like that spring is supposed to rebalance yourself. The outer ring doesn't really support it. What actually happens is instead you kind of just lose a lot of spin, and you end up basically at the end of the match, you just end up scraping and dying. So I think kind of like in a sense, kind of like the weakness that Yard basically has. I mean, honestly, if that ring wasn't there, it'd probably do a lot better. Now, the reason why kick attachment is better is the bottom part's a little bit wider. You don't scrape too much at the end because of how the ring is kind of pushed a little bit upwards. You're a lot more stable and have a lot of good stamina. Even though it is pretty tall, it is still, I think, more effective. And I think that's kind of it. So all of these, I think, were pretty fair to do. Okay, but that's going to be it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Was there any part I mentioned in this video that was your favorite? Tell me what you thought of these parts, and are you going to try it out after you watch this video? Want to also mention that we have a store where you have a 10% off weekend sale for Xiphoid Excalibur. We have pre-orders for Hello Kitty and Zest Achilles. It is an optional way to support the channel. Make sure to check out what currency you have on our store at the bottom. So depending where you're from Canada, you set it to CAD. If you're in the US, it's USD, etc., etc. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and bye!